What if we want to work with an Excel file? We have the Premier League Excel that we can see here. Every row represents one football team with the points and the goals they scored in one season. How can we load this table in Python? Remember that every time we want to do something in programming, we need a function. So where is the function that loads the Excel in Python? Within the pandas library, the library to work with data tables. The same way we had accessed the functions within the library of Matplotlib in the previous tutorial, now we place the dots, as always, and press the tab button so that Python shows us the list of the functions. And now you should think, if there is a function that reads an Excel, how should the name of the function be? Something with Excel. And here we have the function read Excel. We don't need to remember all of the words. Instead, we can deduce it. We press enter and now we pass the name of the file. premierleague.xlsx. We save it into a variable because we want to work with this table later. And now instead of executing the function, I can just put the name of the variable dfpremier and I can see the table. We'd like to analyze the relationship between the goals scored and the points. To better look at this data of 20 rows, 20 teams, we will create a data visualization. So as before, we import the Matplotlib library and now we try to access the function of the points scatter. We ask the parameters shift tab, the x and the y axis, where we need to pass the goals and the points. So how can I reference the goals to the x parameter? I cannot put goals like this because Python won't recognize it, it's not defined. Goals is inside the Premier League. So the same way that we access the functions within the library with the dot, we can access the columns within the data with the dot. We access goals, we execute, and here we have the column of the goals. The same would happen with the column of the points. So we take the function of the scatter, and instead of just using goals, we will use dfpremier goals. We execute, but we need to pass the y parameter. Y equals to dfpremier the points. We execute and now we can see the relationship between the goals and the points. As we saw in the previous tutorial, we can change the size, for example s equal to 100. We can also change the color, c equal to the red, for example. We can change the marker. Instead of dots we can put the X, a cross, or the board, which was the hedge colors. We don't need to remember because if we put the help, we can see here the hedge colors parameter. We hope that you start to connect the dots about how programming works, because even though that we are now working with this Excel file in Python that we imported previously, the code that we are using to produce the charts is the same that we used in the previous tutorial. Previously, we had the data of the football teams in a list that we created, and now we have the data in a data frame that we imported from an Excel. What matters is what you pass to the functions. Here we pass dfpremier goals, which was this sequence of numbers, also dfpremier points, this other sequence of numbers, and it produced the points that we see here. So what else can we do with Python in data visualization? Which team represents each point? To add the name of the team to the chart, we can create interactive plots with the library Plotly. So we import Plotly, and now we access the function scatter, which asks also for the x and the y. So x equals to df goals and the y df points. We execute, and here we can see the points. If we hover the mouse, we can see the information of the goals and points they scored. If we want to add the team, we can add hover name and pass DF Premier team. We execute, and now if we hover the mouse, we can see that the team that won more points was Manchester City, the champions of the Premier League. So one of the conclusions that we can take from this chart, what is the relationship between the goals in the x-axis and the points in the y-axis? As teams increases the number of goals they score, we can see they won more points, which makes sense because you need to score goals to win the matches that gives you the points to become the champion. This is how we interpret the charts to later take conclusions from the data instead of just watching it on a simple data frame. Now that we understand how to create data visualizations from tables, from the Excel, it's time for you to get hands-on and exercise and create data visualizations to practice. So we have prepared this other exercise to see where you need to work with Gapminder data. If we open the file on the Excel, we can see that every row represents one country and the columns is the life expectancy and the money that each person generated in US dollars. So the question is, as you increase the money that each person generates, will you increase the life expectancy? That's the question you need to work on to create the data visualization we saw previously, but with this dataset. You should follow the same steps that we did on the previous tutorial, but please try to deduce the names of the functions that you need to use and how to put the data in the parameters by pressing the Shift tab. Best of luck and get on with it.